Hello and welcome to another episode of Out of Spec Dave, where today what I'm going to be doing is taking you through all the things that are either wrong with the car from a delivery standpoint, or things that I wish the car did better, or things that I think the car should have. So this is the specimen right here. It's the 2021 refreshed Model S from Tesla. Let's get into it. Okay, so I hope you don't mind, but I took some notes here because I got a lot of things to talk about. Let's start with the things that were actually wrong with the car when I took delivery. The first thing I want to point out is that don't mind this little bird issue over here, but here there is one kind of a deep gouge that you can see on the front of the hood. I mean, look, this car's got 22,000 miles on it, no big deal. Okay, I want to pop the hood because I want to show you one of the things. If you could come in here and see, there is a crack right here, and there's a separation here, and it's a lot tighter over here. So I'm thinking that the car had a little minor, maybe a little incident, and the actual rubber, this inner lining is not quite lined up. Now I actually pushed this in. It's not terrible, but you know, something pretty minor to just to be aware of. Oh, probably you can kind of see how the rubber comes up here, and now it's down in there, and on the other side it's a little inconsistent. Not a huge deal. Now I want to show you over here on the door sill. You can see that there's a couple of chips here. Again, very, very minor. Not anything that I would fix, but over here, Kathy, if you can see at the top of the yoke, there is on both sides, it's actually wearing off. That's going to be a warranty item. I don't fault the CarMax for any of these things. One of the other things that happens is you're able to, when you put this, when you're getting in and out of the car, you can actually have the seat go further back and have the steering wheel go all the way in. And when the steering wheel goes all the way in, it starts making this Captain Crunch noise, like it's time for breakfast cereal. And I think what it is there's probably a piece of rubber on the inside there that is just binding a little bit. So, but I'll tell you, very clean car, and you know, at least from the dealership standpoint. Now what I want to do is kind of talk about some of the things that I think this car is lacking, or some of my wishes. And perhaps top of the list is there's no CarPlay. I love CarPlay. Apple CarPlay is great. Why? Because I love Waze. I love to kind of keep the maps up on Waze, and that way I can keep track through the social media. For those that know Waze, this car doesn't have it. I can put my phone down below on the wireless charging pad and keep Waze up there, which is good. But if you're listening to, let's say, Spotify on the car, not on the phone, then the intrusive alerts from Waze, they don't seem to come through. At least I haven't figured out how to make them come through. No massaging seats on this car. And I know, Kathy, you got the massaging seats or at least the massaging seat on the GV60. That's a miss. This is an expensive car. I think it should have massaging. No heads-up display on this car either, which is something that is a little bit interesting. Now, because of the yoke, which overall I like the yoke, but because of the yoke, there are no stalks for the windshield wipers or the turn signals. Now, the windshield wipers, not really that big of a deal, but I find that I've been driving this car for 2 weeks, and I haven't really intuitively fallen in love with the turn signals. If I'm on 95 heading south and I want to get into the right-hand lane, I kind of have to think about where the turn signals are. Now, there is a little piece of plastic in between the top and the bottom turn signals, the left and the right turn signals, that you can feel almost like braille, which is good, but it just it hasn't sunk into my DNA yet on the turn signals. Another thing is the rear view camera. It's a fisheye lens, and it has lines that show you the direction that the car is going to go. But they're just two lines. On a lot of other cars, you'll have two lines, and then you'll also have extra lines, whether they're yellow or green, that will show you where you're going to end up in terms of when you're backing up. And this car doesn't really have the same information on the backup screen as a good. By the way, the backup screen is much larger than I remembered it ever before, and there are two side screens that pop up as well, especially when you put your turn signals on. I do like those side screens. On the center console, you can either choose to display the state of charge or how many miles are left on the car according to the rated range indicator. I wish they would just let you display both. And for some reason you have to go into display and then say, okay, do you want to display miles or do you want to display state of charge? I want to see both on the screen at the same time. That's a simple software update. Come on, over the air. Controlling the distance between the cars in front of you when you're on adaptive cruise control or using autopilot. On the previous generation car, it was a lot easier to do than on this car. On this car now we have a center screen that's horizontal, which is great. But if you want to change the distance from, like, say 3 to 4 to 5 car distance, or the length, you have to go into a screen, and it's just not that intuitive. It's an extra step than it should be. So I don't really like that. The 12-volt power supply, let me show you this. The 12-volt power supply, if you go in there, Kath, and you look, you'll see I've got my radar detector. And what I have to do is I have to run that wire. That's okay, they can kind of see, but you have to run the wire down from the dash, sort of in a clumsy way, to get to the 12-volt adapter. And the other thing that's sort of clumsy is whenever you want to mute the, I use an Escort Max 360C, that in conjunction with Waze is what I like for road tripping. The horn position. I'll tell you what, I think this is actually dangerous. You know, normally, like, you're gonna get into an accident, what are you gonna do? You're gonna slam onto the center of the horn. Come in and check this out. This is where the airbag is. You're gonna hit that. But if you look to the right of the airbag, you'll see on the first little icon that's on the right there, that's the horn. Now, with all due respect, the horn is actually a pretty aggressive horn. I think it's a respectful horn, but the position of where that button is in a panic situation, I'm gonna miss that until it becomes really intuitive for me. And I just wish they would have put the horn on the center as I'm used to. Okay, this is not a small car. Maybe it's my own fault for buying it. It's not too big, but you have to be careful when you're parking, especially in my office where we've got these concrete pillars. And the combination of the rear view camera being the fisheye with the size of the car and not really having the best intuition or intuitive lines that can kind of show where you're going is not great. There is a control for the rear heating and air conditioning, and there are heated seats in this car. But one of the things that is lacking is, because for little Bailey, our dog, she can get air back there, but I wish the car had air vents on the B pillars, which is something that you'll find in the EGMP platform cars. I think that's a better way to do that. Now, this particular car was built in October of 2021, slightly before they added the matrix headlights. And if you look at the rear tail lamps, these are sort of the older tail lamps that I guess they had laying around in the bins before they updated them to what actually, believe it or not, the Model 3 and Model Y has. And then the other thing is that the charging port here on this particular car is still the older charging port. On the newer models, my understanding is that the charging port in conjunction with the rear tail lamps is a little bit better. But I will say that even though this car, in terms of the headlights, doesn't have the matrix headlights, which we'll see if some of the US, let's say, guidelines get relaxed and they'll start allowing people or the manufacturers to start playing with the headlights in terms of better ways of communicating with the road. The headlights are really quite good. In fact, I think they're better. They're auto dimming and auto high beams, which is good. And they definitely are better than on the 100D that I had. But this car rides a lot firmer than my 100D did. Now, I'm not sure if that's because I've got these T-Sportline 20-inch wheels, and these are, the sidewalls are only 35s on these tires. So I'm wondering if maybe that's where I'm getting sort of a firmer ride. But what's interesting to me is because this car has air suspension, you would think that the air suspension would actually soak up those bumps a little bit more. So on the floaters, when you're going down the highway at speed, it's perfect. But it's when you get into that sort of those chatter bumps or speed bumps, I'm really starting to feel that this car is quite firmer, even when I have it in the comfort mode, which is good. Now, a lot of cars today have, we'll just talk about collision warning. When you're backing up, if a car is coming, let's say, from way over there, and it gets 50 feet over here, the car will recognize that there is a car approaching at a 90-degree angle. Let's say you're at the grocery store. This car doesn't. If there's a car directly behind it, it will stop and it will warn you, but it doesn't give you that collision warning either in the rear from a side collision or in the front from a car coming in across the other way. And that just, I mean, this is something that is around on, they have those on Hyundai Tucsons that are like 28 grand. I mean, they should have that. There are no grab handles on any of the 4 passenger seats, which I think is a little bit of a problem. And the yoke, I will say this, I'll end with this, the yoke. The yoke has got good and it's got bad. 90% of the time, I'm completely used to the yoke now, and I like it. But when you've gone further than, let's say, a 90-degree turn, and you're going around and around, when you let go of the wheel and it spins back, it's hard to grab. And I can only imagine in a tough situation, that might be a challenge. So, look, these are, maybe I'm nitpicking here, but I think there are some things. It's not the perfect car. The supercharging network has worked great. There's a lot of positive things to say. That's going to be a separate video that I'll make. And I will tell you the charging, I am happy. I'm going to have a separate video on that as well. But I just wanted to share with you some of the things that I consider a little bit of a disappointment in this car, perhaps misses on the point of Tesla. I think a lot of the decisions that Tesla has made, perhaps, is they're not putting a lot of these safety features into the car because they're expecting that full self-driving will take care of all that for yourself. So why do you need to see a light in the side view mirror if the car is going to drive itself? It's just not there yet. So I'll leave it with that and leave it at that. And thank you again for watching another episode of Out of Spec Dave. Hopefully this was helpful for you, and we'll catch you on the next one.